you can hear me. And if it gives out, I've got Shirley over here as backup. We are so glad that you are here. This is one of our Discovering Round Rock History programs. We do these on a quarterly basis. I recognize some faces, and some of you are new to this program. We are very excited that Larry and Pete and Jim, Ella, and Tina are here to talk about their experiences growing up here in Round Rock. 5 lives that have been molded by the history of Round Rock. And we'll get to that in just a minute. Little housekeeping issue, the restrooms are right down this hallway to your right, if anyone has need of that. Our programs are co-sponsored by Round Rock Preservation and by the Historic Preservation Office. My name is Judy Anderson, and I'm president of Round Rock Preservation. And our representatives from the Historic Preservation Office are Kirsten Harding and Lily Park. So we put these together with speakers that we think the citizens in Round Rock would have an interest in hearing the information they have to give us. And we're very excited about this panel today. I just want to give you a quick update, which we normally do at this program, about the historic preservation projects that are underway and what our progress is. If you have been on the 620 road, on Monday they opened 620. The overpass is complete. Heritage Trail West is nearing completion for the access to Chisholm Trail. We are thinking that'll be December, early December, when we'll be able to get through on that road again. Stagecoach Inn update. The air conditioning system is being installed. The roofing materials have been ordered, and we are waiting for those to come. If you drive by there, it truly is a mess, but it will be beautiful. It'll be wonderful when it's finished, and we can hardly wait. The Palm House Museum, we expect to be moved from its location on Main Street to Old Settlers Park the first part of 2024. So we'll keep you updated on that. Just look for our emails to inform you about that. And we have put on all the tables membership applications. If you have an interest in Round Rock history and the work that we're doing as preservation organization, I encourage you to join our efforts. We need other like-minded individuals from Round Rock helping in all of the projects that we're engaged in. And hopefully by the end of this year, the signage for Kinney Fort will be in place. That is located in the Concord at Brushy Creek subdivision, where their swimming pool, their activity center in that neighborhood is, and that signage will be in place. So we're very excited about completing that project that we've been working on for a couple of years. So that is all that I have for announcements. And let me first introduce Larry, and then Larry will introduce the other members of the panel, and they're just going to talk about their families and their remembrances of Round Rock. Larry's family has been here since his grandfather came in 1883 from Sweden. He was a carpenter and a farmer. And then Larry's dad was the pharmacist in Round Rock for
50 years.
50 years. And I remember as a child going to Round Rock Elementary School, going to the soda fountain at the Quick Pharmacy after school and having nice treats there. So Larry, take it away.
Before I start, we have some family books, history books on the table here, so if you take a look at them later, They're not part of the Round Rock Public Library, they're family folks, so just make a note, take a picture, and not get them on the internet, or you can check it out at the library. All right, I'm Larry Quick, as she said, introduced Pete Correa, and Jimmy Tungett, Ella Sauls, and Tina Steiner. So we're going to talk sequentially just how we've experienced growth in Round Rock, growing up in Round Rock, and then we'll have a question and answer at the end. So, give you my perspective, the written history is a selective process. When an author wants to sit down and write a history, he has to select what ideas and events are really important because he has a particular perspective of what the history means, both to the citizens that are here and people in general outside the town, and historians and the historical record. So as to select the events, and one of the difficulties is you can select those events from the timeline, you know, the first settlers, the growth of the Chisholm Trail, cattle drives, then the arrival of the railroad, and that then removed the need for the Chisholm Trail, cattle drives. And then you had events like hurricanes, droughts, political events like wars, and then economic booms and busts, the Depression, and the boom times. So these are events that are part of history. What we're trying to do is fill in those blanks. Between those events, what was it like to live here? So we're going to start by just saying where our families came from, when they came, and why did they come, and what was life like? You know, you think about the time, a year's time, you know, start off with the weeks. Well, you start with church on Sunday. Then Monday and during the weekdays, you know, you had, well, the businessmen usually had coffee in the mornings to talk about events and what was going on in politics a little bit. And the mothers who had young children that weren't in school, they would have a tea or a coffee sometimes during the week, just to get together socially, sometimes to play cards or dominoes. Then sometime during the week you would have school events, like sports practice, that sort of thing. On Friday nights, we went to the football games. And then on the weekends, often we would go down to the Brushy Creek and we'd go swimming. Everybody go down there, and the mothers would put out a picnic blanket, and the fathers would go down with a fishing pole and get under a shady tree and start fishing. The children would go to where the water was shallow and there was gravel. So then we would take little sticks and twigs, or we'd bring a little toy boat, and then we'd make a little canal, or we would even have to go out into the shallow water and you'll have a race or something like that. So it was very much a common celebration of life and of what it was like. Then, of course, if you look at it on a monthly basis, you had PTA, you had meetings like El Amistad. Usually, the church group would have a men's club or something like that. There was also, on a monthly basis, you would have a way of getting together, like the PTA, for example, on events that were common to the community, where the whole community had to get together and in some way communicate and make decisions. Then you look at the annual time schedule, and we just start off with the spring garden planting, with Easter, with the May, Memorial Day, July 4th, September you had Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas. But there were other events. For example, in the summer in Round Rock, there was an amusement business that came to town. It was called the Carnival. And it was downtown, on the railroad, and they would bring a Ferris wheel, a carousel, and they would bring what one was called a tilt-a-whirl. You sat in a little chair and you went all around like that, and you would get dizzy. So it was fun. You'd like to do it, but not twice in a row. They had games like a little arcade where you could use a BB gun, an air gun, and shoot off little targets. And if you get the big one in the back, which was a big bear, grizzly bear, or it was maybe a battleship or something. But if you hit that, you got stuffed animal, stuffed toy, for worth probably $10, but it probably cost you $15 to earn it. Then we had the chance to get together at Christmas and exchange gifts. Everybody had trays of cookies that we shared with neighbors, that sort of thing. And often there was one person in town who would dress up like Santa Claus and go from house to house and just hand out little envelopes of I don't know, a coupon or something. And it was my turn to do that. And I can remember I dressed up like Santa Claus, had a big beard, but I had a little smallpox scar on my cheek. And so my little niece said, "I know who you are, you're not Santa Claus." Well, I want to talk about my family. My grandfather came here in 1883 from Sweden, and they were farmers and carpenters in the old town, old country. At that point, there was a Swedish immigration movement that came to Central Texas, to Round Rock, and the farmers and business people who had been here for several generations before, they said, there's two things wrong with Williamson County. There's too many weeds and too many Swedes. So the procedure for coming to this country and immigrating, if you got a job or you came over and were indentured, like to the Nelson family or the Svente Palm family, you would serve for 2 years, and that way you could earn enough for get some local clothes that adjusted to this climate, or jeans, that sort of thing. And it would give you a horse and all that was necessary to ride away and go any place you wanted and get a job someplace else. If you served for 4 years or 5 years, they would give you a horse and a wagon, where you could take your family with you. If you stayed for 6 or 7 years, they would give you a horse and a wagon and a plow and seeds and a couple of oxen to actually, or mules to actually start your own farm. And that's what my family did. We bought the farm. It's on Old Settlers Boulevard right now, and it used to have a windmill up top so you could see it, but it's right on the opposite side from the county annex. And my dad was born there, and he went to Round Rock High School, all public schools, went to the University of Texas, became a pharmacist, and in 1940, he and his brother, who were both pharmacists, they bought Quick Pharmacy. It was then called Noble Pharmacy. The label on top is Economy Drugstore. And so my dad ended up standing behind that counter for 50 years. And he finally sold it to one of his friends, and he then sold it to the group of people in Georgetown who have their locally owned pharmacy. And now it's owned by Gilbert Sarmientos, and he still uses the name Quick Pharmacy. So we're proud of that. The old building downtown at 204 Main Street, where the pharmacy was, is now, it's operated as a bar, as a saloon. And the owner of that is Steve Sheets, the city attorney. But we always laugh about it in the family that for 50 years, my dad, was the pharmacist in the building, and giving medicine to the community. And now the building is still being used for medicinal purposes. It was a good time to grow up in Round Rock, and my family has always had the opinion, the philosophy that there's two strategies in geography. One is that if you see a good place to live, you move there. And then you enjoy that time. But if you see another place to live, you move there. Or another place, you keep moving, that sort of thing. The other strategy in geography is you see a good place to live, and you commit to living there, and you make it a better place. And that's what the Quick family has done, or tried to do. So, for example, my dad was 50 years in a pharmacy. He was at sometimes the only medical professional in Round Rock. And my family has dedicated itself to education. Two of my aunts each served for 50 years of teaching. And my Aunt Agnes, who lived to be 99 years old, in her 90s, she would get in her car and drive down to the old folks' home to talk to the old people. Those were her students when they were in elementary school. And my mother taught for 35 years with it. My wife taught for 35 years. And we had various family members who had dedicated their lives to education. We added it all up one time, it was 350 years. Then we also, the family members have been always involved in some way in the medical profession. So those two values that our family has favored. We've had a wonderful life here, and we just wanted to share it with our friends here. So I'll turn it over to, I guess, in line. Pete, can you go next?
Yes, sir. I'm not as famous as Larry, but I've been here a long time. I remember the things that I remember about Round Rock. I graduated in 1966. I don't think there was 1,000 people in Round Rock. And we lived over there north of the Round Rock and Chisholm Trail. There's a bank there now. And there was no HEB. There was no 35. There was a gravel road to Round Rock. And once a month, I'll never forget this, Round Rock was so small. There was about 5 of us, 10 years old, 12 years old, and we'd come to town. Mr. Clark had 4 horses and a buggy and a wagon. We could hear him coming down the road. Daddy would give me 15 cents. We'd wait for Mr. Clark. He'd come up, he'd pull our wagon up, and he'd talk to the horses. I remember 2 of the horses' names. Thunder and lightning. And he'd pull them up and you could hear what, like that. That was it. We'd all pile up, hey, Mr. Clark, about 5 of us. And I would watch him. He had a straw hat on, overalls, and he big one pocket, plug of tobacco. He'd get a knife and cut it, chew it, and then spit on the ground, that stuff run out. He said, you boys hold on, we going to town. He wouldn't get a haircut. So we bounced and come in, and it was a gravel road, there was no 35. And we come down, and down there, in fact, right here, there was a barber shop. He would get his haircut. Well, he pulled up with a wagon. He said, you boys go on town, behave yourself. I'm gonna get my haircut. So we went down there. Daddy would give him 15 cents. A bag of popcorn, a nickel, soda water and ice cream over at Quick Pharmacy. We'd go there and we'd play around and then we'd come back. And he was ready to go, so we piled in and he would dip in the other pocket. He had one of them old powdered tobacco powders. Put it in the mouth, stuff run out, he spit on the ground, smell it. And we'd go down back there, and that was, I never forgot those memories. And then the creek where we lived at, I remember one year, I can't remember what year it was. People tell me why I didn't take a picture, because there wasn't no camera 65 years ago. And the railroad was built out of trusses, and there came a big flood, and trees piled up, and it knocked the whole railroad bridge down. And I remember those things like it was yesterday. We used to swim, we used to fish there. It was so much fun, I tell you what. And the thing that I remember too, downtown Round Rock, and they all see the pictures on the electric boxes of men playing dominoes. Doc Anderson, Eddie Berg, Mr. Kelly,
Walsh.
oh, it was, I can't remember, it's been a long time. But I remember they were playing dominoes all the time. And another thing, I remember across the street, there was a bridge over called the Tap. It had a sign, no women allowed. I mean, I used to go to East Austin, you know, and that was brought up in Texas Monthly. I remember that so well. And then on top of that, down in the flats down here, it was all gravel. We used to have friends, we used to get in rock fights, stick fights, and I remember little days, that was simple. There was one place hang out with the school, the Dairy Bar. Remember the Dairy Bar there?
Yeah.
It was right there at Lambert. It was so much fun. And I tell you what, I remember downtown, there were 2 grocery stores. Peterson and
Arden Johnson.
Arden Johnson, yes, exactly. And there was a broom factory downtown. I remember that. Yeah. It's so deal. And And I remember Frontier Day, they did it in real live horses. I mean, real life, it was so much fun. I tell you what, it was, huh?
It was me.
Exactly, yeah, that's right, he was one of
Sam Bass.
Sam Bass, exactly. But it was quite memories. I remember now on 620 where the high school is, that's where we used to throw our trash. That was the dump ground right there. It was, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that, but the deal is, people don't realize downtown was Main 35. It's amazing. I mean, it's hard to believe that that much time has gone by. I tell my wife, I say, honey, I'm one day older, but I'm still kicking. You know? That old man keeps on knocking on the door, but I won't let him in. But anyway, something true.
All righty. Well, my name is Jim Tungate, or Jimmy Tungate. As Larry grew up, I was in his class, so I was known as Jimmy Tungate, but at that time, there were 5 Jim Tungates in Round Rock. All of them cousins of mine, so I don't know what our parents were thinking, but it was a difficult time. I grew up on a little white frame house on 620, right by the railroad track. That was on Mark Severin's ranch that is then changed over to Pearson's ranch. But we lived on that house, and I have a picture of it that one of my dear friends that we graduated with, Cindy Montgomery. My mother was an artist, and she was going to paint the picture, but fell off of the back porch, which was real high, and broke both of her wrists, so that ended her painting career. But for years, I've accumulated all this stuff, and that was the house that not only I was born in, but Larry, my brother, was born in, plus the ex-president of the Ex-Students Association, Charles Earhart, his older sister, Thelma, and then the older sister, Pauline, were all born in this house. And I didn't know that until after Cindy painted this. I went to Windberg and had the prints made, and I took my siblings, Colleen, the copy of this, and Pauline said, is that house on 620? And I said, yeah. And she said, well, Charles and Thelma and I were all born in the house too. So they were cousins. And so she married Clifford Tungate, and they had 3 girls that graduated from Round Rock High School. So the Tungates were pretty thick back then. But you know, it was really a pleasure growing up in Round Rock, and I was delivered by Dr. Dick.
Greg.
Yeah, no, Bowling Greg. And he and his wife Thelma are both buried in Palm Valley Church. And I didn't know that until recently, and I started looking this up. But he came out to the house, and he didn't charge my dad anything for delivering Larry or AJ1. I mean, that was in the golden years, you know. But
Often he would, his compensation was a chicken or something like that.
yeah, I mean, it was, you know, but that's in the past, you know. But my mother didn't drive, and my dad was on the road all the time. He drove for J.M. Rayburn and Luling transport truck and haul crude oil to East Texas. And so he was gone most of the time, and so I started driving at an early age just to take her to get groceries and stuff like that. Got my license at 14. So as a handicap, I guess, you know, for her not driving. So there's benefits to your mother not driving. But there was 5 of us, 5 children. All of us went to Round Rock High School, and you know, it was a pleasure to graduate in my class of 1964. There were 33 in our class, and it was one campus. Larry was part of that group. But it was like those students were so bonded that it was more like brothers and sisters. I mean, we really have a close-knit class. Although there's 12 of them dead now, well, it's still, we have a reunion as soon as the COVID kind of stopped that, but you know, we're still close.
I want to remember somebody. The vice president of the senior class was John Hernandez.
Yeah.
And John graduated and went to work for Abbott Laboratories, which is on Mopac now. And he got to be a manager. Well, one of the things that they do in there is they manufacture pharmaceuticals in these huge vats, huge containers. And periodically they have to clean them up. So he had management of a crew, and he sent a couple of guys down there, and they measured the oxygen, and it was safe for humans, so they went to work cleaning up. Apparently there was either a leak or they came across some chemical, there was a residual in there, and they fell down. And you could tell if they didn't get them out of there, they would die. So he climbed down and tried to help them up. He fell down, so he died. And you know, you can talk about heroes, and there are heroes every day, even among us, firemen, policemen, where you actually are in danger when you go to work. But there's different ways, in the military, of course, but there's different ways of being heroes. But sometimes we just have to remember that ordinary people can be heroes too. I want to say something else before Jim gives up. He's a genealogist. So he studied his family history back before the Mayflower and back into England.
Yeah.
How far back?
Well, we started in Jamestown 1607. That was 13 years before the Mayflower. I had a great-grandfather that died there in 1632, and his brother died. They had an epidemic that went through there, and his brother died in 1634. But, you know, I probably have one of the richest histories in Texas history, and I belong to 18 different historical organizations. One of my great-grandfathers was Robert Howe, that was the highest-ranking soldier in the American Revolution. He was in a duel with, I don't know if you know anything about Christopher Gaston, but he had the yellow flag with the coiled up rattlesnake on it, said, "Don't tread on me." Mm-hmm. He donated that to the First Navy. And there was correspondence because my great-grandfather was a judge and a lawyer. He was one of the prosecutors in Benedict Arnold's trial. But Christopher Gaston was saying derogatory things about him growing up in rank because he was a major general. So they fought a duel, but it was a gentleman's duel. And I have, they had a poem that they did about it, and I have that poem on my office wall. It was a friendly duel where they kept arguing, you know, you fire, no, you fire. So they said that Robert Howe raised his gun and he shot and hit what he was aiming for, but it wasn't Christopher Gaston. And Christopher Gaston put his pistol over his elbow and fired between his legs, and then they walked up and shook hands. So, but that was documented. But I have, in Texas history, I have 4 great-grandfathers that were in Texas before 1834. Cornelius Smith and William Roberts, along with Andrew Roberts, his son, and Noah Roberts, his cousin, came over with Stephen F. Austin in 1823. My 2 grandfathers were in Brazoria County, and the uncle and the cousin were in Fort Bend County. The land grants that Stephen F. Austin gave them was over 10,000 acres each. In fact, Noah was on the group and he received 40,000 acres. But where by Cornelius Smith and William Roberts is where Angleton is today in Brazoria County. Cornelius Smith had a son, Wesley Lee Smith, in 1832, and then my grandfather Meredith Tungate came to Texas in 1834 at the age of 16. 2 years later, he fought in the Battle of San Jacinto. So, you know, I have a rich history in Texas, and you know, in all of the conflicts that we've had so far, I've had great-grandfathers that have fought in them. 2 years ago, I wrote a book for my niece that won a full golf scholarship from McGregor, Texas. That was my brother's granddaughter. And she got a full ride to the Citadel in South Carolina on this golf scholarship. And so I wrote her this book that has 7 different great-grandfathers, their lineage, and where they're from. Robert Daniels, my mother was a Daniels. Her great-grandfather was the governor of South Carolina, and he was the 10th grandson of King Edward III. King Edward III lived from 1623 to 1677. But all of these are, well, I have another great-grandfather that was the governor of South Carolina, and that was James Ezekiel Moore, which is the grandson of Rory O'Moore that started the Irish Rebellion of 1641. So, you know, all of these great-grandfathers, it has the lineage and, you know, how they're associated with me. I just want to leave with, I have 4 children that I'm very proud of. I'm a blessed man because my oldest son, Jimmy, lives in Seattle, Washington, and he's a foreman for Amazon, making terrific money. And the next daughter is Stephanie. That was the first wife, Billy, and I was married to her 14 and a half years. Stephanie is a LVN, or a registered nurse, and she's been with Scott and White for about 30 years. Then I skipped 20 years and I remarried and had another daughter, Kaylin, in 1988. She owns her own salon in Georgetown, Tortoise and the Hare, because my wife collected turtles, and so she had them all over the house. So in order to get rid of them, I named that shop Tortoise and the Hare, H-A-I-R. So, and my daughter is running it now. But then my youngest daughter is a NICU nurse at St. David's in Austin. All of them have fantastic spouses, and I have 10 grandkids. They're all Christian, so I'm truly blessed. You know, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Ella?
Okay, my name is Ella Sauls Morrison. I am the granddaughter of Wade Irvin Sauls, who was known as the Cotton King of Williamson County, because he always had the first bale of cotton that he brought to the gin. A lot of people don't know, but the gin here in Round Rock used to be right across where the water place is now. And of course, we had cotton, and you could smell the seeds and everything all over the neighborhood. We all lived in my auntie's home that was right behind you all, Mr. Quiggs. And also Dr. Gregg was just right across the street. And I was born in 1946 at the Holy Cross Hospital. Back then, the only hospital for us was a small hospital run by Dr. Dickey over in Taylor, Texas. And I have to share this right quick. Tom Lopez shared with me about a year or so before he died. His mother got real sick. She was hemorrhaging. He took her to Dr. Dickey because there wasn't any physicians other than Dr. Gregg that saw us, because we lived next to him, and then Mother worked for Dr. Gregg. Daddy did a lot of carpentry for him. But he did a son to mother transfusion and saved his mother. And Tom shared that with me, and I want the community to know that, because a lot of the Lopez's, they didn't remember because Tom was a lot older than them. I told Sauls, which everybody called Winsdale, was my daddy, and Ethel Hurd Sauls was my mother. Her beginnings were, it's really a coincidence. Anna Palm's maiden name is Hurd. She had a bunch of brothers in the family that came over. A lot of them went up Pedernales way. So her father ended up being a Hurd. His wife was named Ellen. Her maiden name was Ladina, and they're both listed on the 1920 census as, what do you call them? I just went blank, but you know, everybody that lived to get our age, we know that. She was mixed white. Both of them were mixed white and black. Mulattoes, yes. And I was surprised to see that. But I am a retired nurse, registered nurse of 55 years. I went to Brackenridge Hospital School of Nursing when they allowed blacks to go to the vocational school. They wouldn't allow blacks in the professional school. Matter of fact, the instructor said that people have to walk over her dead body before one got there. But a very close friend of mine that was a nurse at Dr. Snyder's, he was a urology doctor. He was the first male. She tried to keep a male from going, but he was able to go, Paul Bass, and he was wonderful. I worked with him for a number of years. My grandpa Wade Sauls owned property out off of County Road 17. He bought property right off of Harriman's Road, which now my cousin passed away, so his stepchildren, they sold all of the property. But his cave's up there. Daddy says nothing in there but a lot of arrowheads and stuff, because they used to go, and snakes. He said rattlesnakes.
The name of that development is Saul's Ranch.
Yeah, yeah. I was glad that they did that. But the only reason my cousin ended up with it, because Grandpa was unable to pay the taxes. So his father, Ollie Sauls, who also had a big farm out off of 107, they paid the taxes up. So it stayed in the family up until Toots died. We called him Toots, but his name was Clarence. There was a large family of boys and girls. They're scattered everywhere. Grandpa and Grandma came here in the early or late 1800s. His father was, and mother, the mother's name was Lizzie Sauls, and his name was Israel Sauls. We found on the census that they came here on one of the boats. It showed there was probably about 12 or maybe 15 Sauls that went up by Liberty Hill. He had 166 acres that he bought after he got out of the war. He was a Civil War soldier. And after he got out of the war, he bought 166 acres. And several years later, Wiley Chapman took the property. He owed $9 and something on it. And, well, his taxes were $9.25, I believe. And he owed $2.65, so they took his property. So he lost that. So Grandpa, one of the brothers, they moved here on Palm Valley, and Grandpa was the overseer of Palm Valley Ranch. I remember going out there as a kid, playing around. Marguerite was very friendly, but Anna didn't like anybody coming anywhere she was. They kept her upstairs. She was pretty sick at that time, but Mother also worked for her too. Mother also worked for Dr. Gregg, but he'd raise horses, and one horse was named White Sock, and every time Daddy'd go out there to do some carpentry work, he would let me ride White Sock, and I was so happy. when Daddy was about 16, he found some mammoth skeletons in Chandler Creek. UT came down here and they, they removed the bones and so forth and left, never did hear anything else about it. So there's some rich history all along Chandler Creek. Matter of fact, rich history all here in Round Rock. I attended Breckenridge School of Nursing, and then I went on to, I worked at Trinity Lutheran. I was the first black licensed nurse to work at Trinity Lutheran. Pastor Robert Fellows ran it then. Miss Reinhardt, and my director of nurses was Ella Heavy, and I was her assistant director of nurses. I first started nurse aid training down there for some of the high school students. And today, I am happy to say I have a lot of registered nurses that I trained back then. There's another uncle, Irvin Sauls, where Jolie Johnson School is named after him, and it's on Sauls Ranch. His son sold all of the acreage there. He also raised cotton, but his specialty was cows and pigs, and he had some of the prettiest, if you can believe that a cow is pretty, he had some beautiful, perfect cows. I mean, the white head and the curly hair and fur on them, it was just so beautiful. Uncle Ollie raised cows too, and matter of fact, he was known as the best person to go to if you had a difficult birth, because one of the older guys shared with me a couple of years ago, one of the calves had hung during birth, and the veterinarian from Georgetown came down. He couldn't do anything, so he told him, he said, call Ollie. Uncle Ollie went over there, delivered that calf, and he was fine. He also had a cow that was blind, and his legs were bent backwards at the front. And we'd always go out there, and as kids, you laugh because they walk funny, but that cow lived to be a long time. Uncle Ollie nursed that cow. And I was, went to Hopewell High School. It was Hopewell Colored School then, and it was that way up until it was integrated in 1966 by Anthony Mays, who's a minister now. I tried to go in 1963. Daddy and I went up to Superintendent Grissom's house. He used to live on, not down the street from where you all live. And I remember that pink house. Yeah. And we went in because Daddy had done some work for him. And we went in, and I told him, I said, I'd like to go to, this was like the spring semester of my junior year. And I told him that, I'd like to go to Round Rock High School. And he said, well, we'll have to vote. Daddy said, Ella, it's not even worth it. Just go ahead. I graduated valedictorian from Hopewell High School. And my best friend, Jerlene Anderson, was a salutatorian. We didn't have a place at Hopewell to have graduation services. And back then, we had baccalaureates and commencements. Nowadays, they don't even do that. But they allowed us to have our baccalaureates in the gym where C.D. Folks was the high school then. And we had our graduations there, and then the commencement was at Sweet Home Baptist Church. A little tidbit, Hopewell was started in 1921, and it originated from the original school on County Road 110. It's an old barn still standing there. And that's where Stony Point was first, the school. The kids from Hutto, surrounding areas went because there weren't any other schools besides Georgetown. And it's still standing. Hopewell started in 1921, and there were like 3 or 4 classes, in one, because it was a small school. After Stony Point closed for the farmers and everybody that lived that way, the school was started in Good Hope Baptist Church, which is still standing on Chisholm Trail. It was organized in 1865, and our home church was organized, which is still downtown. We still have services in 1885 at St. Paul. We used to be right down from where the carnival always came. And it's right by the branch, so that's where their church was. And that church was built out of a barn wood that one of the local farmers donated. And our church in town is still built out of that original barn wood. It's old, it's small, but like Whoopi said, I'm still here. And the church is still here. Let me see what else. I was very happy to hear you mention about the census, and I've always, this stuck in my mind. During 1964 and 65, the population was 1,875. And our area, Dad built homes everywhere. And, you know, Mama worked for a lot of the elite people. But our original home, our childhood home, is down on Spring Street, and we're just being embarked. We are being just embarked with people moving and you know, people selling, and it's not many original homes. The flat, the majority of the people that lived in the flats were people of color.
Yeah.
There were few Mexican-American people, but the people of color, they bought acreage. And to see that move, matter of fact, here at the library, Bert Earl lived here, my auntie, the oldest sister, Aunt Stella lived here. And, well, they called it Cozy Corner. They named it Cozy Corner, but it was originally Lily's Cafe. And across the street from there, catty-cornered, was Mamie Conley. She had a Mexican restaurant, and I haven't tasted a taco or enchilada to today that tastes like that woman could cook. The president of the bank and their people always came down to Mamie Conley's and they ate. She could really cook. She left quite some time ago. But the whole area where the library, old library is, what was it? Aunt Bessie and Emily, yeah, the Schooling, Bessie Schooling. She owned property, and that's where the land is. Mr. Mechanico kind of managed that particular thing as far as her moving and selling so we could get the library uptown. Louis Hammer's garage used to be there. We had a fire station. Matter of fact, when I had my wreck, they didn't have but one ambulance, and Adolph Huff, he was also an orderly at Trinity Lutheran Home. He was the one that came to pick us up, and he picked me up off of the highway. That's where a lot of the scarring comes from. But 18-wheeler, the wheels collapsed on the back of it and hit my car. And I found myself on the opposite side. It was just two-way then, but I was on the opposite side, and my cousin was still in the car. But that's enough of that. Huh?
The police station.
Oh, yeah. We had policeman Johnny Repke, Elmer Earl, Wayman Farrell, and Wayman Farrell's one had afflicted arm. Was he the one that had the
He
afflicted
got
arm?
it in the cotton gin.
Yes, he could knock people out so quick. It didn't make any difference to him. But, you know, it was restricted for us, but it was still like a family. Helmer Johnson's, grocery, Johnny Robinson's, Peterson's, Rubio's, he came over here many years later. But Peterson's grocery, it was the lady that worked for him. She wasn't real friendly. Dad was in there doing some carpentry work for him back behind the meat counter. And she would throw your change down on the table. She didn't want to, you know, touch your hand. And, you know, you remember things like that as a kid,
absolutely.
you know. But the Quick Pharmacy, love this Quick. He did our pharmacy's medication referrals at Trinity Lutheran Home back then. And, of course, he remembered me as a kid. And when he didn't have a lot of patrons in the store, he would call my cousin Jessie, because we were always somewhere around. Y'all come on in. He let us go in and sit down at the counter and eat our ice cream. And I never forget, he was a very fair man, a very smart man, and we loved him. We loved him.
I want to make a comment about Hopewell.
Uh-huh.
The story is an unofficial story, of course, but the superintendent of Round Rock Public Schools and Hopewell School met after 1954, the Supreme Court ruling Brown versus Board of Education. And they sat together and said, we need to have a plan to get these schools together. But we don't want any controversy, we don't want any hate, we don't want any disturbance. And the superintendent of Hopewell,
Harry.
yeah, he said, we need to delay this as long as we can, because Hopewell has a higher percentage of students going on to college than Round Rock Public Schools does. And that's why until 1966.
Yeah.
John Wood used to come up and run
Yeah,
track
Charlie
with it.
and Charles Hurd. That was a real funny thing in the sports. We had good football, we had excellent band, we had excellent choirs, we had a little spin-off of our band we called Seven Hearts, and there was 7 girls that we sung at one of our Round Rock Black History Organization meetings. It was 4 of us still left, and we all sung there. And
Gordon Woods. Gordon Woods?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, he's married to my cousin, yeah. And, what'd you say? Well, you know, we were restricted in many ways, but still we were able to overcome a lot of different things. I remember when the train derailed. My auntie lived right at the corner of Bellevue, and I don't know what they call that street now, but the ones that goes over the little creek. And the train derailed, and Uncle Sam Mercer, and a lot of the brothers and brothers-in-law, and quite a few Mexican-American men, they went there and they were able, I don't know how they did it, but they were able to get that train back up on the track, and it was gone. We had to walk to school because the bus didn't pick us up in town. And when it would rain, Lake Creek would flood, and we would have to walk over the railroad track. We timed it just right so the train wouldn't come. We walked over the railroad track, and some of us that were brave, we walked on the rocks that weren't covered, right on the bridge there. But it was fun, a good place to fish. You could catch a lot of different fish. But, you know, a lot of good memories. I'm thinking of Kelly Bradshaw's barbershop. The majority of the flats was out mostly black people. They had their businesses, a garage. Morris Woods, he fixed your car would run until something else broke on it. And he didn't break you either, as far as if you didn't have the money right then, you're going to bring it to me next week. Ennis Martinez had an excellent restaurant down there. We remember going through the side door at the restaurant that was by Johnny Robinson's grocery store. I don't remember the name of that restaurant, but it's right by the original post office. I can't remember the name of it, but we would go to the side door there and get food. And the post office back then, there was no street names. We all had post office boxes. Ours was box 95, and when the post office moved up now, where the city hall is, we had post office box 456, and it was fun going in there, turning the thing, you know, especially for a kid, you know. And to see how it's grown down, it is wonderful. The city managers and everybody has done a good job, but it would be so nice if we didn't have so many bars. I have to say it. I don't have too many bars. When my sister and I are down at our home place, because my granddaughter lives there now, we're keeping our home as long as we can. But some type of light place has grown, moved in right by us. It's a man building a 3-story home right across the street. And it's just odd to see the original beauty of that particular area being distracted by so many different tall homes and businesses and so forth. And back then, a little mom and pop grocery next to your house was fine. But to have something big, commercial, come into your neighborhood, it's horrible. And remember the Campbells, the Corneliuses, Mary Washington, she lived to be 107. She was a member of our church, and she lived right on the corner of Liberty and Lewis Street. Of course, we didn't have no street names back then, but that's where she lived. She had a big 2-story house, and she lived there. And the Earls, the Telly and John Earl, he was I believe it was a Marine in service. And he made a high rank in one of my associates, because I'm on the Veterans Committee also, and he said, you know, that was really wonderful for a black man back then to make such a rank. But in 2014 or 15, I encouraged our Black History Organization to honor all of our veterans. And we have a number here. We also have them scattered in some places in the military cemeteries and also at Capitol Memorial. And of course, my husband wasn't from here, but he wanted to be buried in Killeen, so that's where he is. I just lost him last year. And he was originally from Jamaica, but he was fire chief in the Army, not the Army, in the Air Force. I remember Whitlow was...
Dunky Whitlow.
Oh, yes. He was, Whitlow, you could ask him for anything or any advice, and Whitlow helped you. Matter of fact, he loaned Daddy $130 so I could get into nursing school at Breckenridge Hospital. And helped me get my first car. And Whitlow was just wonderful. He was another Mr. Quick. And also Helma Johnson. Helma Johnson was like a daddy. But Peterson's grocery, the lady that worked in there, she didn't want to do anything with you. She'd throw your change down on the counter. She didn't want to touch your hand. And as a child, you know, you remember that stuff. Thank God things have changed now for the better. And it's been changed for a while, but definitely it's changed for the better. The only place we had to swim was over in Brusher Creek, across from where the Stagecoach Inn is. We had a diving board there that was carved out of the rock that's on the shore, and the boats are still there unless somebody moved them, but the boats are still there that bolted the diving board down. Yeah. And that's where a lot of us learned to swim. We left here in '53 because Daddy had some work in Austin to do, and we stayed down there until 58, and we came back up here, and that's how we ended up graduating, returning to Hopewell to graduate. I started there when we had what we call Primer. I was 5 years old, and I started school. Miss E.C. Freeman, she's a teacher of all teachers. You go out of her classroom, you could sing your multiple tables, you could sing your additions, and she made it fun. And, you know, to this day, I remember 10 times 10 is 100. Yes, Lord. It was wonderful. And she was also a member of our church. Let's see, who else? Victor Robinson's down there by where Dairy Cream was. I don't remember that little man's name, but he could make some hamburgers. Hamburgers don't taste like nothing like what they do nowadays. Aunt Stella, one of Daddy's sisters, was Miss Voigt's maid for many, many years. My great-grandfather on my mother's side, John Woods, he's buried at Las Limas out off of Broaden Creek. He was the first freed slave in Travis County by Governor Woods. And they tried to get that area historic, but they weren't able to do it. And it's possible because back in the early years, they had the smallpox epidemic in Austin, Travis County. They had close to 1,000, maybe quite a few over. It's a mass grave down there where Grandpa John is buried. But they fenced it all around with wrought iron fence, and it's really nice the way they have it now. Let's see. Oh, yeah, the carnival. I have a bunch of historical pictures and stuff here. I don't even know if you all would like to see it, but different awards and things that we got. And
Go ahead, put them over on the table over there.
okay, yeah, we could lay them over there. I was mentioned about Stony Point and also the Flats. The other black area owned here was called Julian, and it's right off of South Mays and Bellevue now. Matter of fact, my auntie's house is still there, and Chapalito still lives over there. Hopewell put out a lot of different professionals. We have school teachers, that's what a lot of people did, but Hopewell only went to the 9th grade, and if you wanted to get your high school diploma, you had to go to Georgetown or either Houston-Tillotson, and that's where Daddy and a lot of his relatives and then friends went to get their diplomas. And Juanita Craft, some of you all probably don't know, you might have heard of her. She was just a graduate of the 9th grade at Old Hopewell, and then she went to Austin, to Houston-Tillotson, and graduated. And of course, you know what her profession was. Even the presidents and ex-presidents attended her funerals. And there's a museum in Dallas, isn't it in Dallas? In Dallas, in her favor that they have set up for her, and it is really nice. Our Land History Organization honored our veterans. We do it every year. We put out flags over in our historic cemetery. Back in 1885, 2 ministers bought their property next door to the white, it's always been referred to as a white cemetery, but it's Round Rock Cemetery. And we also have slaves. I have pictures of a number of the graves there, because my sister and I and Tina and some friends, we always go over and cut trees and limbs and stuff and fix things up. And I found one of the ladies, 1838. Her grave is there, and the headstone is still there. They kind of mess up quite a few of them when they're cutting the grass and stuff, but we try to keep them together. Let's see. Oh, one of our 19th of June celebrations, yeah. Grandpa would donate a hog and also donate a cow. And we'd have our 19th of June celebrations. If not at some home, we would have it just east of the Brusher Creek Bridge, there where the cheese factory used to be. And it's down, I don't remember the name of that street. It's down the street in the woods back then. There's a grape tree down there, and those grapes were this big around. We were down, my girlfriend and I were down there fishing one day, and we saw this little man standing by a tree this wide. He was this wide and didn't have a stock of clothes on. he looked so funny. I think his name was Swinson or somebody like that. But anyway, we went ahead and fished. Back then, you know, you felt free, and you had a chance to discover things, and the children could learn so much. Plus, you had a good reference at home. You know, the parents, if you did something wrong, before you got home, that neighbor already called and told your mother what to do. And if they didn't call, they would go over to the house, or they would escort you home. Of course, we never did have that problem, but there was quite a few kids that, you know, had to get chastised. And depending on if your mother or father knew that person where you were acting out, they could give you a spanking and then walk you home. Oh, absolutely. But nowadays, that's abuse. And I can't think of anything else. I think I've talked enough.
You're great.
Yes. We'll treasure what you told us.
I just have a question. Is there I see all the books I haven't looked at, but is there a definitive book of Round Rock history?
Yeah. There's several.
Yeah, there's one. And then there's one, Cowboys to Computers, that they have one in.
It's in the reference section.
Yeah, the library.
And Ms. Ella,
Uh-huh.
can you tell us more about the slave cemetery? As a child, how much did you know about that? Was that something that you all took care of back then?
No, because we weren't allowed to go over in that area back then.
I see.
And when we were, I was able to find a headstone, apparently where the family member etched, I think it's John Williams, Annabelle, and Baby. They were all buried at the same time. And each time we go over, because we put flags there too,
Right.
but each time we go over, somebody has gone in there and you know, moved the stuff, and it's ridiculous. People should have more
I'm on
respect.
the board of directors of that cemetery, Round Rock Historic Cemetery, and it was very well cared for and perpetuated until we started having motorized lawnmowers. These tractors go
Yeah,
through,
that's it.
and they just push everything around.
And I'm blessed to be on the cemetery board with Larry, so I'm in charge of the Slave Grave Cemetery on Round Rock Cemetery side, so we're trying to work and getting that. We did a great job cleaning it up last time,
Yeah.
so we're staying on top of that.
They need a new sign, because that
getting
sign,
one.
you
Yes.
got rotted. But I'm also in the process of trying to get our cemetery listed as historical. And hopefully we can, because their graves go back, like I said, the oldest one I found so far is 1838, and it's quite a few soldiers and airmen, Navy people, so forth, that are buried there. I have an uncle, well, he's a granduncle, my grandmother's brother. He was killed in Austin. He was a policeman in Austin on the mule. He rode the mules. And matter of fact, his grave is there in the city of Austin. Have a nice headstone for him. But the saddle, and back then they had iron pieces made out of the saddle, that was left on his grave. But it's deteriorated now. And I asked several years ago if Austin Police Department could come up and, maybe help us to refurbish that. And I met one of the guys who's a policeman. He was on our Veterans Committee. And he said that he would check, but I haven't heard anything from him. I haven't heard anything from him, but we try to keep it, try to keep it clean.
I have a couple of questions. You talked about the post office.
Mhm.
Is that the one that was over by the railroad track?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many graduates did you have at Hopewell?
In my class,
In your class?
we started out with 15 and ended up with 6.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Because he was talking about 30-something in their class.
30.
Yeah. I don't think we ever had that many there, but we did have, Round Rock just didn't serve Round Rock. Round Rock served Coxville, Kings Village, Pflugerville, McNeil, and what is it, down from where Albert Lab is now, Wellston. I can't remember what that's called.
Marytown?
Yeah, Merrilltown.
Well, some from Middletown, but it's another name. Yeah, it's another name. Yeah, Kings Village is further
That's a
east.
big,
Amazing.
But it was
Big area.
Yeah, a large area. And we had one bus driver, Jack Mays. He was also our barbecue. He could cook some barbecue that you would never get the taste of. And just plain, he had an old dry wood tree limb, fixed it up, fixed his sauce, and I'm telling you, it's a taste that you'll never forget. And I was looking at your map. That map kind of looks like the one that I drew. Did you get that from the library?
It's from the library.
Yeah, that's the map I drew. Yeah, And thank you all for listening. Hope I didn't talk too much.
Tina,
Okay, I'll be quick. My history is not as prolific as theirs, but I think I'm surprised y'all didn't mention the gazebo that used to be downtown.
Yeah.
Remember town gazebo?
There was a water well.
And the
Yeah,
water
it was a
well.
water well. So that was our we used to go after school and just sit in the gazebo and watch the cars go by, or watch the old men play dominoes. I see somebody nodding their head in the back. Yeah, that was fun. I know during school, we used to be able to leave City Folks, which was Round Rock Middle School when I went to school, and we could go home for lunch. We'd walk home for lunch. That's not heard of nowadays. And the carnival was actually at Old Settlers Park when it was over on 620. So that moved over this way. Mama used to tell us to go, and Mama is, I'm Ella's niece. So her parents, my grandparents who raised me. And so on Friday night, she'd tell us to go get the cane poles from under the porch, so we'd go down to the creek and go fishing if we wanted to eat that night. So we'd go down and go fishing, and we'd have to go home and skin them. I was afraid of worms, I was afraid of fish. I didn't want any part of it, but I had to do it anyway. And Daddy, I can remember we talked about going to church, and so my grandfather was blind. And so Daddy would get his cane, and we'd walk up to the church. Our church is the second oldest church in Round Rock. And we went to church Sunday, we went to church Monday, we went to church Tuesday, we had choir rehearsal, we had junior missionaries, we had, almost every day we'd go to church. And I love going to church with Daddy because afterwards we go to Stella's house, who was right here. And Mildred had the hamburger place across the street. And hamburger baskets were like $1 for big old hamburger and fries. So we would always go to church so we could eat after church. So, and being an educator, I really have to talk about the schools. So there was North Side and there was South Side. And North Side, I had Miss Boyd was my first grade teacher. And her sister, Miss Payne, was my second grade teacher. Third grade, I had Miss Johnson, Melanie Johnson, who this property we sit on was theirs. And then I had Mr. Johnson, Jolie Johnson Elementary. I had him for sixth grade math teacher. She's talking about people telling on you. Okay, when you got in trouble, he would let you make it home. But then he'd go by later after school and tell on you some more to make sure you got it. It was the only middle school, Round Rock Middle School was the only middle school. I actually had Miss Quick for music in third grade.
My mother.
Yes, I had Miss Quick for music, and we always played that flute. Everybody did the, what is that, the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Yeah, everybody learned Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Let's see, high school, the only high school was Round Rock High School until my senior year, and then Westwood was built. So almost everyone went to Westwood because they lived on that side of town. And I remember Coach Martin, we didn't have a soccer team. So he's like, okay, I need to make a soccer team. We all just went out and said, you know, I'll play soccer. I couldn't play basketball because it was too much running. I was trying to do that. And I'm like, soccer's even more running, but I went out for soccer anyway. And that was a lot of fun because we ended up playing on the fields here where Round Rock Middle School was, and they're no longer. We kind of fought. I was very much against them tearing down Round Rock Middle School because it was historic, you know. But in all fairness, our kids need a place to call their own too. Because we had a place to call our own. We loved Round Rock Middle School, but they needed a place too. And I'm so glad that they have such a beautiful building now. Excuse me. And for our kids in the neighborhood, we always did sports. We always did. I started track, I did volleyball, I did, you know, up until my high school. When I was a class clown, of course, I had to go out for drama. It's theater and arts now. But, I mean, it was such a great place to live. It really was. We had so many different things here to do, and we didn't have, it looked like we didn't have anything to do. We didn't have very many toys. You could go out and play, pick up a rock and a stick and play, you know, play with that. You play. That's when we had Mother May I, Hide and Go Seek, you know, Simon Says, and they were fun. Those were fun things. We didn't have video games, but we were outside. And I was one of those kids that something was wrong with me because I was always moving. And yet, those of you who know me already understand, right? So my grandmother would tell me to go outside and play, but you always had to be in when that street light came on. You better be in when that street light came on. So I'd go in and I'm like, I'm not tired, now what? Go to bed. So I went to bed. We didn't have medication, we didn't have any of that stuff. You just knew you had to go to sleep. And if you didn't, you better lay there.
You had no television.
You had no, oh my God. Well, we got a TV. It was black and white. I don't know if some of y'all remember the color wheel. Yeah. That was the color TV. And it always went off at midnight until Wolfman Jack came around. And it would go off with the national anthem. So and we had cartoons. You better have those chores done before you even think about turning that TV on. And cartoons only came on like an hour and a half. And there was Schoolhouse Rock, you know, Electric Company and things like that. So, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Bub Adams. Bub Adams had the only gas station here, and Mama would go and get like $1 or $2 worth of gas, and we'd ride all week on it. So that was one of the,
Clay pot?
The clay pot, yes. And then there was Henna Chevrolet, and every September they would have a Customer Appreciation Day. And so we'd come in from Round Rock Middle School, and they'd always let us have cookies and punch just because. So that was fun too. But I mean, it was simple back then.
Yeah. It's
Really simple and fun. And fun. And
Tina, I remember you telling me so much about growing up here, and of course I did not, but you also mentioned something about there was almost like an invisible line where the blacks and the whites, there was a division. What was that?
It wasn't
like?
so much a division, we just kind of knew our place. if you will, way back in the day, you know, we just, and he's mentioning, because we had a friend named Brian, and Brian told me, come uptown, we're gonna have lunch. I was like, well, we don't go uptown. You know, why would I go uptown? And so Brian insisted I go, and so then, since then, it's not like anybody told us to stay out. It's just like we felt this was our place, you know?
It was comfortable.
But
with
you
the
also
other
mentioned
people.
about where you went to get the best Halloween candy. I'll never forget that.
Oh, Miss Goodrich's house. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, Miss Goodrich had
Oranges.
the best Halloween candy. Oh my God.
That's
Huge
the
candy bars,
And
seriously.
fruit.
And then so one day we went, knocked on the door, and she said, aren't y'all a little bit too old, we can trick or treat? We were like 15. And so, yeah, she was right, so we quit going after that, but she had the best candy.
And that's the big man.
At the Woodbine, yeah, that's Miss Goodrich's
But you,
house.
although you're 15, you still have that childhood part in
Yeah, we were
you.
outside.
You know, nowadays 8-year-olds want to wear high heels and put on
Yeah.
makeup, you know?
But I want to remind you, that when the Swedes came to Williamson County, to Round Rock, they were considered a migrant, a minority,
Yes,
and there was discrimination there.
yes.
We had to start our own school,
Yes.
Stony Point.
Yes. I graduated in 1982. Yes. Oh, and Chisholm Trail was actually the ninth grade center for a moment, and we were the only class to go to the ninth grade center, and then it became, I think, Chisholm Trail. I don't know, Larry, help me.
Yeah.
I went to the ninth grade center.
Yes, you went to the ninth grade center as well, so yeah. But it was, and it was like ways away. And I remember one time we were cutting up, and the bus driver's like, if y'all don't straighten up, I'm gonna take you back to school, you'll have to walk home. No, I live down here, the house that Ella's talking about. Round Rock High School's across the highway, there was nothing but weeds and sticks and, you know, all kinds of stuff. Well, she got as far as Golden Chick, which wasn't there yet, and she turned all the way back and went to high school. Yes. So we got kicked off the bus for like a week, and we asked her mama, my grandma, can you take us to school? She said, I didn't get y'all kicked off the bus. So every day for a week, we walked from here to Round Rock High School across the highway. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, when we got back on that bus, we were like this. We didn't say a word. But again, like we all said, it was so simple, and 592 students, or about 9 through 12, I think it was in our whole high school, and that's how small it was, like 1,200, I think, when I started high school. It, probably near toward the end of middle school. And it was just so small, and now you could go to the grocery store, you can go anywhere, and you know everybody. And now you don't know too many people, you know? Except in the district, it's like everybody from Round Rock back then works for the district, so. Yeah, right?
I have to share this about Tina too. She was about 6 months old. She didn't want to try to learn to walk. So what she did, she took this foot and she scooted. And she could go fast too. She scooted. And she hasn't stopped yet. She hasn't stopped yet. We're so proud of her.
Still moving.
Still moving, yeah.
I think we'll take a couple more questions, then we
Yes,
gotta
thank
leave the
you.
room, it's, we're gonna be occupied.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Couple more questions? If not, I wanna thank you for the opportunity.
We thank you. I have a question. I know none of you are old enough to know anything personally about the bridge over here, the Immortal 10 or whatever. But do you know anybody around here that does have firsthand information?
Well, tell the
Don't
story.
everybody speak at once.
My family was on 507.
I'm sorry.
My family, Quick family, built a house at 507 Main Street, backs up to the railroad. And it was, late at night, or let's say 7 or 8 o'clock, I think. And it's built, Main Street is built on the curve, so the bus driver couldn't see both directions easily.
Yeah.
And that's when it happened. They were hit by this huge steam engine. And so the whistle kept blowing. The engineer just pulled the whistle and just let it run. And so everybody came running to figure out what was wrong. And they kept finding parts and pieces of people.
Yeah, I'm really familiar with the story. I just wanted to hear somebody that might have had a firsthand, or even a secondhand, like somebody told me this story. So, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Basketball team from Baylor, wasn't it?
Yes.
His father.
If you go on the city's website and look under local legends,
the Immortal 10 were listed as local legends a few years ago to give you a little more detail.
Yeah, I just want to have a firsthand story.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have certificates of appreciation for each one of you for being here today and sharing your stories with us. We really do appreciate that insight into that part of Round Rock's history. It's different than we normally get. This is Shirley Marquette. Also on our board, Frank in the back, and Phoebe Duvall was here and had to leave a little bit early. Frank's wife, Ann, handled your registration. We thank you all for being here. Don't get up and leave yet because we have door prizes that we'll do. And you all have your, did everybody get a ticket?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, Ann, here's what we're going to do about the door prizes. When you hear your number called, just come and pick without looking inside. Just, and my sister says, what you get
It's what you
is what you
get.
get, and don't pitch a fit. So we will do that in just a minute. Did you get a picture, Shirley?
No, I'm going to.
Okay. Maybe if you could stay for a minute afterwards, we'll get one without the table in front of you. Any other questions, information you need from us? Our next Lunch and Learn program, our history program, is February the 13th. And someone from the police department will come and tell us about the history of the Round Rock Police Department. Ought to be very interesting.
And you were coming from the and Sylvia?
Sylvia, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't introduce Sylvia Forbes, a former member of our board, has donated all of the items for our. She's donated all of these for our door prizes this time. Okay.
And don't shake it.
If you like it, she gets credit for it. If you don't like it, she gets
If you have a little extra time, feel free to come and look at these resources. And I know for a fact, many of these are in the library where you can check these out in the library. They have a really good Texas history section on the third floor.
This one is the Bible.
The Round Rock Bible. Okay, let's go. Can everybody hear? Or your number?
Well, this is
882-801. Oh, right after me.
Oh, I enjoyed it thoroughly. I mean, I really did.
801.
I'm glad that you were glad nails.
You get a picket.
About my history. My daughter, last Christmas.
Which ones are they? Are the big ones?
You can take videos.
They're all different.
Okay. I was thinking, I didn't want you to think the next thing that you say. Yeah, it's not till 2.
We're a real informal group, if you haven't noticed.
Well, I said, somebody came up, so it was a remember. Came up and said it was a remember.
Work for Hannah Chevrolet and Ford Company is in parts department here.
You cute sacks.
882-783.
We came too early, they're all 8 something.
Hannah Chevrolet.
Those, the early bird doesn't take the first one all the time.
Yeah.
Well, lot of packages. Ours skipped out. 802.
Hold on, call.
802 is the last three.
Send them sometime in the next 2 or 3 days. Keep an update on what everybody's doing.
What's the number? Say the number again.
802.
Talking to my brother, Mark.
All right, go on.
And he said, it's getting to the point where I can just sit in one room.
This one is 882-796.
At least they're in the sentence now.
Here we go.
Got a winner.
Also, I neglected to introduce another guest that we have today. Audrey Simmons serves on the Historic Preservation Commission. She is, I guess, the newest member I am. And I'll give a plug for Local Legends Awards will be announced on Thursday night at City Council meeting. So if you can be there a little before 6, it's very exciting.
Okay, it's also Boucher night.
Yeah.